Welcome to the Medisynergy podcast. I'm Imogen, an A-level student, here to bring you the best people with knowledge and insight on how to get into medical school, how to become a doctor, and help you decide whether a career in medicine is for you. I'm here today with Lydie and Hazal, who are currently studying medicine at Barts and are also Instagram and YouTube medicine content creators, so keep listening to hear more about that later. Welcome to the podcast, guys. It's great to have you on here.
Thank you for having us.
That's all right. It's great to have you, honestly. So let's get started. So a bit further, a few years back, how did you decide that medicine was the right thing for you?
I think we get that question so often, and I think kind of like the not so long answer is kind of just ensuring that you diversify your experiences and that you expose yourself to the medicine field as much as possible, because that will teach you what you like and what you don't like. So by going to conferences and hearing about the profession, kind of allowed me to reflect and really check in with myself if this is a career that I doctor's shoes in the future. And yeah, that just consistently checking in with like if this was something I was interested in, I would say is what allowed me to really refine my decision at the end.
So I have a similar answer to that as well. I think it's just really important to understand what you're getting yourself into, like in a positive way and in like a not so positive way as well. I think we're in a time where there's so much information online about medicine, medical school, becoming a doctor. There's so many healthcare professionals and medical students sharing their experience online. So I think it's a great way to really get an understanding of if this career and if this degree is the right one for you. So yeah, definitely diversify your experiences in terms of, clinical experience if you can, but also diversify your knowledge by taking a look at the lots of different videos and other information available online.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I mean, the whole thing about understand what you're getting yourself into, that's kind of the whole point of this podcast. That's why I wanted to start it, so I could see kind of both sides of medicine, as you said there, and diversifying your experiences. So if that's looking at things online or actual work experience. For example, I had some in a hospital with doctors, but then also radiographers. So it's not exactly a medicine degree, but it's also kind of the whole thing, the whole area. So once you decided that you wanted to go into medicine, obviously you're both at Barts now. So what stood out to you about Barts compared to other med schools?
Well, Barts was in London, which was one of my preferred regions when applying, and I think Barts also does PBLs, which at the time I was quite interested in, and if for anyone who's listening that doesn't know, PBLs are problem-based learning sessions, and that's essentially when, aside from your lectures, during the week you'll have 1 or 2 sessions in a small group with about 20 students and a tutor as well, and you sit down to go through a case together and then come up with learning objectives based on that case, and then you go away, do your own research, come back, share your research. So it's like a good way to kind of learn information outside of a lecture setting, and it's kind of what we're more used to in terms of more of like a classroom setting from like A-levels. So that kind of stood out to me, and I like the idea of that as well. I also applied to King's. This is funny because people always ask me how I picked between Barts and King's. The reason for picking Barts was more of a petty reason, because I had both of my interviews and King's made me wait longer for a response. So I was like, they've made me wait too long, I'm not going to pick King's. So it was more of a petty but the main difference between Barts and King's, I would say, is that King's offers cadaver dissections, whereas Barts doesn't. And Barts starts clinical placements from first year in terms of GP placements, but King's doesn't. But yeah, that was kind of a long answer. But Lydie, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, the main reason I picked Barts was because it was the only London university willing to take me about chemistry. No, I'm joking. I weighed up all of the universities I was applying to, so like Manchester, Anglia Ruskin, Barts, Keele, and I kind of looked at what I thought would be most suited to me as a medical student, so teaching styles, location, all of these things, and it was a tough one because, for example, with Keele, I found the campus so beautiful. It was a campus university. I could really see myself there. But like with Barts, at the time, just like as I said, I found the concept of PBLs really exciting. The fact that it was in London and I could commute and live at home with my family, which is something I was looking to do. And stuff was also another thing I had to take into consideration. So I literally just like made a rough list about what the different benefits and cons were, and it just came down to Barts because my main priority was being able to stay at home and save money and just be in London because I was so used to London. So yeah, that was like one of the things that kind of led me to Barts. But yeah, it's really interesting you asked that because I think for example, with the Cure example, there were things about Cure that I would have loved, but it's just about like, what do you love more? What is your biggest priority in the list of, what will make me happy as a medical student? And for me, it was being at home, being in London, commuting, and stuff like that. But yeah, I would have loved the campus uni, but I'm happy at Barts.
Oh, well, we love a pros and cons list. It's definitely a good way to figure out which uni is the right one for you. And I mean, they're great answers.
Yeah.
London definitely does appeal because obviously it's the big city and there's lots going on. I live in Exeter, so it's a bit quieter, but London definitely seems like a really good option for that reason. So it's great you guys like it there. So how have you found it at Barts now in your fourth year? How has it been?
That's such a good question.
That's a really good question.
I think, do you want to go first? Oh, okay, I'll go first. I really enjoyed my time at Barts. I think obviously medical school isn't easy, but I think looking back, I'm really glad of my decision for picking Barts just because of things Lydie said, like location and stuff like that. But also I've been able to obviously start this YouTube channel that me and Lydie started, and we probably wouldn't have started it if we didn't go to the same university. And just by doing that, I've had lots of experiences that I probably wouldn't have had. So yeah, I've really enjoyed my time at medical school, especially clinical years, pre-clinical years where it's more lecture based. It's a bit more not to my liking, I would say. I'm not really a lecture person. But clinical years where you get to go into hospital placement, you get to go to lots of different wards and just meet patients and doctors and really get a better understanding of what your life's going to be like. It's obviously had some difficulties, but I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, so just to add on to Hazal's point, what was the question? Like, how have you enjoyed fourth year so far? I think, yeah, fourth year's been good. I think it's been very diverse. It's allowed me to diversify my experiences and it's given me a good exposure of the different specialties in medicine, the good, the bad, the ugly, which I think is so important in helping. People think the only decision you need to make is, do I want to do medicine? You get into medicine, that's the end of the story. But as you go through medicine, you will learn a lot about yourself and you will refine for yourself what avenue of medicine you want to pursue, whether it's research, education, leadership and management, just becoming your regular schmegular doctor, GP, specializing. So in that decision making of what does my life look like post graduation, I would say clinical years has been very pivotal in allowing me to learn a lot about myself, so that's been useful. Fourth year medical school isn't easy. It's one of the years where on top of having a dissertation, studying so many specialities, and just trying to give that final push so you can make it into final year, you also have to start thinking about final year where you want to do your medical electives, which is when you get an opportunity to go abroad and practice medicine abroad. You need to start thinking about the examinations you're going to have, where you want to apply to become a doctor. So there is a lot to do at one given time, but I think medicine is one of those things where you do build up the skills to have to balance a lot of things from the get-go because of the structure of medicine just as a profession. So I think we've been equipped for this, but it isn't easy.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot to think about and a lot to apply for and do. So yeah, I can imagine it's quite stressful and a lot going on, but it's really good you've enjoyed your time. And you mentioned a lot there about specialties. Do you have any idea what specialties you'd like to do?
General practitioner, because I think there's a lot of taboo, and obviously we see on the media or even the government, the way they behave towards GPs, their hard work is quite regularly disregarded just because the struggles that they face look different to the struggles that hospital doctors face. But regardless, being a doctor will never be easy. It will always be hard, and there will always be a level of struggle across any specialty. But for me, I like the fact that with GP, I'll probably have the opportunity to really maximize the fact that I'm a multi-potentialite and I love putting my foot in different things. I think it will give me more of an opportunity to diversify my career, which is of huge priority to me. And on top of that, one thing I've realized about myself throughout medical school is that I'm not in particularly overly passionate about anything. So there's nothing that I want to specialize in because I'm not super passionate about a single thing in terms of like the scientific parts of medicine. So I think with GP, I will have the opportunity to, expose myself to all the different specialities at a suboptimal level, which is I'm happy to do because I enjoy medicine. I'm just not super passionate about anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I'm probably leaning towards GP as well, just because I think when I look into my future and think about the career I want to have, I see GP providing me with the most opportunity to do so. I am like really passionate about, not really passionate, let's calm down. I'm like quite passionate about like peds and just working with kids in general, because I've been able to see pediatrics as a specialty for the first time in 4th year, and I've really enjoyed it. But I don't think working in a hospital for the rest of my life is the career I want to go down. So maybe something like working in a GP and specializing in pediatrics, something along those lines. But of course, we're still both 4th year medics, and our minds might change in 5th year and in our foundation training years as well. But for now, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, definitely. GP sounds really good, and I know quite a few GPs, or been to various different GPs on work experience, and it is great. And actually, a few weeks ago I was interviewing a GP with a portfolio career, and you both mentioned about having other things that you want to do at the same time, and it does seem like it goes well with what, if you want to do other things, it goes quite well with that. So really good way of thinking about it, I guess, but also being open-minded, like you might change your mind. Yeah, a lot of people ask me like, what specialty do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know, I haven't had any experience, so I really don't know.
Honestly, we've been getting this question since we said we want to do medicine in like year 12, and it will just continue. You pick a specialty. I just think it's one of those, as medical students or aspiring medics, it's just something you're always going to get. But for the younger students, like those in 1st, 2nd year, or even aspiring medics, I'll just say keep an open mind and explore your options before you close yourself off too early.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that. And that's why I say to people, I say, oh, I'm just keeping an open mind. Although there are a few things I definitely don't want to do. And if people listen to the podcast regularly, they'll know what I'm not into so much. Yeah, definitely a few things. But moving on, so you talked about PBL and like the course structure of Barts. So problem-based learning, what has been your favorite problem? I know there are loads of different cases, but has there been one that stood out to you the most?
That is a very good question that I've never got before. I don't even know what to think about. I think especially in my like 1st and 2nd year of medical school, I enjoyed learning about like anatomy related stuff, just because I found it easier. I found it easier to like conceptualize bones and muscles rather than diseases and other stuff that you can't really see and imagine. I don't know if that makes sense. So I preferred learning about conditions that affected like bones and muscles. So like when I think back, those are the conditions and the cases that stick out most in my head. But yeah, Lydie, have you got any?
No, I don't remember a single thing. I think the only thing I remember is we did one on like, was it something called tennis elbow? I think it's epicondylitis or something like that, when you kind of have a malfunction in the elbow region, and that was only because I had to do an assignment on it after. That's the only reason I remember it. But yeah, no, there was nothing PBL that's very memorable. I think it was mainly because like PBLs were quite hard to stay on top of. So it was a thing where I would actually do it like just the night before and then go into PBR with the information. I didn't really have time to commit myself to learning properly because of the overwhelming and busy nature of medicine. So maybe that's why I don't remember a thing. But yeah.
And we don't have PBLs anymore. So we only had PBLs in 1st and 2nd year. And then in 3rd year we had kind of something similar, case-based learning, so CBLs, pretty much the same thing, but we don't have those anymore in 4th year, and I don't think we get them in 5th year anymore as well, because we just learn from the wards. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I mean, if it's like 2 or 3 years ago, it's going to be hard to remember it, but good to know about the tennis elbow and the kind of anatomy side of it. And you said how now you're more on the wards rather than problem-based or case-based learning. So with that, are there any gory stories that you've seen? I like to ask this question, and people always say, oh, we're desensitized, but is there anything that you think, yeah, actually that is quite gruesome?
100%. Like, yeah, medicine does desensitize you. It's a bit scary how much it does that. But like, I will never forget, without going into too much detail, just a decaying, I don't know how to say this, and like a decaying penis. There was a decaying penis on the ward. It was enlarged and it was like necrotizing. So like the cells were slowly dying, and it was, obviously, bless the person's soul, I hope they get better, but it was horrifying to look at as a medical student. Like, it was maybe borderline traumatizing, because obviously you don't really see stuff like that on a regular day-to-day basis. So that's one thing that immediately sticks out in mind. And yeah, there's been other things that have been quite shocking to the system, like, you know, an anal abscess, or like, just like a lot of things, but that decaying penis is the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind when firstly, obviously, we've had to witness childbirth, and that was obviously, I wouldn't say gruesome, it's just more like even outstanding to witness. Like, they were like, wow, like, I can't imagine.
Shocking.
You can never imagine the body doing that until you see it do that, and it's just like a baby actually came out of a woman. Like, if you think about it, it's like, I can't even put it into words. But another thing I saw was whilst I was on the vascular surgery ward, I think, was it? Yeah, something like that. And like a lot of patients there have like kind of like similar to what Lydie was saying, like decaying limbs, because their blood cells are no longer healthy. And I remember this patient had a wound, and the doctor like removed the bandage, and there was just like a chunk of the foot was just missing, because the skin and the cells had decayed. And I was just like, and it's the first time I had seen that, and I was like really taken back by it, because everyone was just acting like it was normal, which I guess is because all the doctors there they're really desensitized to that. They've seen that before, but because it was my first time seeing a chunk of someone's foot missing, it did really take me back. I was taken aback. But yeah, I think medicine does really desensitize you. But yeah, there's still some experiences where you're like, okay, it just takes a second to like compose yourself.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, that just happened. I just saw that. Oh gosh, that sounds like something out of both of those. And that's what I like. We like a good gory story. So thank you for those. They're definitely high up on the list now. So the reason why you two are both here and how I found you guys and what connects you two is your Instagram and YouTube of Journey2Med. So how did that start? How did you get into that? And kind of what do you do? How can people find you?
So we started Journey2Med. We went to the same sixth form together. So we didn't know each other in secondary school, but we met at sixth form, and we kind of went through the whole medical school application process together, helped each other with our personal statements, interviews, all of that stuff. And we noticed that there's a lot of information you need to know when applying to medical school. But it's either one, really difficult to get a hold of that information, especially if like your school is not well informed, or you don't have anyone in the family who's a doctor or who's been through the process. Or two, if you wanted to gather the information, you had to go to lots of different events, lots of different websites, and really like work hard to kind of just gain the basic information you need to be able to apply to medical school. So once we had applied and finished our exams and stuff, we had like an abundance of knowledge that we felt would be really useful to put onto one platform where all the aspiring medics can go and just find everything they need to apply to medical school, even if they're from a disadvantaged background like we were, even if they didn't go to grammar schools or private schools, just so kind of everyone like had the basic information they need to apply to medical school. So we started Journey2Med, our YouTube channel, and in the earlier years it was more about you know, going through each step of the application process and providing tips and advice. And now it's converted more into a platform where we give an insight into what the life of a medical student is like, as well as providing study advice as well. So yeah, that's why we started, and you guys can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok as well, where we provide lots of different advice, lots of different insight and stuff like that. You should definitely check it out.
I remember one of the first reels or TikToks I saw is when Lydie, you put like, was it black marker pen on your face to make like
oh my
God. I can't even remember what the video was, but I thought that was hilarious.
Thank you.
Oh, so funny.
Sometimes I forget about digital footprint and the fact that these things will be online forever.
No, it's really great videos. Yeah, definitely. Anyone listening, check it out now. It's really helpful and just
Thank you.
funny and real, actually. So that's what we want. And so what would your advice be to people like yourselves, medical students or pre-medical students wanting to start their own content creating account or a podcast or something like that? What would your advice be?
My advice would be just do it, to be honest. Like, you know, we're only young once, and I think during this time where we have that energy to help people, we have the energy to start creative projects, we have the time to start creative projects, do it now, because you don't want to regret it in the future, kind of thinking what if. It doesn't matter what the end goal is. Like, the main thing is just start it and like carry it out with that intrinsic motivation and that intrinsic personal reason for which you want to do it, and just see where it goes. You know, you may not necessarily be a 1 million YouTube channel that earns thousands a month, but you can really impact people's lives on a monthly basis. So I think it just depends on what your priorities are, but I think just go for it. And I think be careful as well, because I think what you do find is some people are like, oh, other medics are doing content, let me do content as well. But then there's that lack of remembering the type of profession you're in, and just, you know, lacking professionalism, or sharing information you shouldn't be sharing, or being quite offensive in regards to some conditions or some situations that could really get you in trouble, if not now, then in the future when you are applying to be a doctor. So just remember about the digital footprint. Remember to be careful with the content you're putting out there. And I think just have fun with it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself about arbitrary goals and arbitrary statistics. I think in this day and age, when you see so many successful medic content creators, it's very easy to get demotivated if your content doesn't seem to be popping and stuff. But like, if you enjoy what you're putting out, things will eventually fall into place. So yeah, I think just have fun with it.
Now, to say even though it isn't easy, just try and stay consistent with it, especially if it's something you're passionate about. Don't get too caught up on, you know, having the best camera, the best setup, the best lighting, whatever it may be. Just get started and just stay consistent, because the more you make it into a habit to put out the content you want to put out, the more likely you are to get something back in return, in terms of views and numbers or whatever it may be. But
yeah, that's really helpful advice. I mean, be consistent. I hear that all the time, and that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast and things like that. But also just start. Like, you're not gonna be perfect the first video you make or the first thing you do. Like, once you keep doing it consistently, you'll get better. So I absolutely love that advice, and would definitely second that. It's really valuable stuff to know, and it's been quite a journey actually for me with my. Well, it's not content creation. I feel like that's blowing my own trumpet a little bit.
It is content. It's definitely content creation. Content creation comes in different forms and shapes. Trust me, like, this is content creation.
Also, big props to you for keeping up with it during your A-levels.
Yeah, I would not have been able to.
Yeah, and even medical school, you have a lot more time, I would say, to pursue creative projects like this. But to keep up with it during your A-levels, I don't know how you're doing that. So big props to you, and like, well done. You're doing very well.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it is strange, isn't it? Like saying, oh yeah, I'm a content creator. It just feels really weird. But once you get started, get going, it's definitely that's what you should be doing. So how do you manage, like we've just talked about that, how do you manage content creation, extracurriculars and medical school?
My main way of like managing my time essentially is by planning my week. I swear by planning my week every Sunday before the upcoming week. And it really helps me to get an overview of what I have coming up, and to see if I have time to pursue other things like extracurriculars, content creation, whatever it may be. So Lydie and I always sit down, and then we'll firstly write down all of our like non-negotiable tasks, whether that's placement, I don't know what else, like anything else we've got planned in that week that we must do, and then we'll look at to see if we have any time for content creation, any extracurricular activities, and just by having that weekly plan, it really helps you, one, organize your time, but also prepare for the week ahead. You can get like a digest of what's coming up, and it helps you prepare mentally and physically for what you have coming up, so that you're not taken aback by your tasks as the days come. So yeah, I don't know how I lived before I planned my week, but honestly, it's really, really useful. And if you guys are struggling to get your tasks done, or you feel like you can't keep on top of everything, just write down everything you need to do on a list, and then slot it into each day, whether that's over 1 week or 2 weeks, and I think it will help a lot.
Yeah, I second that.
Well, that's great. I mean, it is good planning, and then as you said, you kind of mentally prepare what's coming up, and then you won't get too overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, I've got to do this, because you already know what you've got to do. You've set it out nicely. So that's definitely great advice. I really like that. And I try to plan my days, at least. The weeks I feel like there's so much to do in a week, isn't it? But expanding to a week sounds like a good idea, and you're obviously doing great with revision and content creation at the same time. So it's definitely a good method. So actually, at the start, you talked a little bit about difficulties in 4th year or in Barts in general. So what have been the kind of main barriers you've faced in your medical journey so far, and how have you overcome them a little bit?
That's a good question. I don't know about barriers. I don't think there's been like anything that has stopped us from like progressing within medicine. Obviously, you will have your fair share of exams that didn't go well, exams you failed. Sometimes you might have placements you really hated. Sometimes you might come across medics who are super competitive, bad vibes, super intense. So there's always going to be bits and bobs that crop up. But I think it's just about staying true to yourself, doing the best you can, looking at your options, getting support, whether it's pastoral support or like academic support from the university, just knowing your options and doing the best you can. I think like you will get through all of the things that medicine does throw at you. And I think just don't get too bogged down by what's happening in your environment. If it's a horrible placement, try and find ways in which you can, find a doctor that is happy to teach you, or find whether it's like the junior doctors who are happy to teach you and take you on, and avoid that one consultant that's mean to you. Obviously, if the situation is really big, you can report it to the university. With like exams, if you're struggling, there's academic support. You can ask your peers, how are you guys revising? Give me some advice. If you're struggling with like finding people in medicine who are not bad vibes, maybe you can kind of attend committees or societies that aren't necessarily tied down to your degree. So I think there's always options, and I know your question isn't how to resolve those barriers, but I think with every problem that has popped up in medical school, you need to be proactive, and you need to find a solution, and you need to move on from it. If you allow everything to bring you down, you are going to be very unhappy during medicine. If you're struggling to have a work-life balance, what can you do? What advice videos can you watch? Who's doing it really well that you can learn from? How can you apply that to your life? Are you being too hard on yourself? Do you need to understand that this is exam season and things will get better next month? Whatever it is, there's always a way out. So it's just about being proactive, extending grace to yourself, and not being afraid to ask for help.
And yeah, I would say that's a really big thing. The last point is not being afraid to ask. I think as aspiring medics and as medical students, we all have a bit of pride and a bit of an ego, which stops us from asking for help, because maybe at school you were a high achiever and you really didn't need help because you were good at everything or whatever it may be, but medical school is a whole different ball game, and we are kind of all, especially as school leavers going into medicine, kind of on the same playing field of maybe living out for the first time, doing a degree where you've not done anything similar to it at all in the past, and trying to like find your feet as an adult in this adult educational world. And that's why it's really important to understand that it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to ask maybe your teachers, even your family, your friends, or the support network available at your university, because it's not meant to be easy. Medicine is not meant to be easy. And if you are struggling, it's really important that you find the help that you can get, so that you're not too disadvantaged and you're not you're not putting yourself in a situation where your problems become bigger because you didn't ask for help. So yeah, that's something I've definitely learned at medical school. Like, it's not embarrassing to ask for help. It doesn't make you look weak or stupid or not good enough. In fact, it makes you look smart and proactive because you're going out to solve problems that you have.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that. Ask for help. It's very true. People doing medicine or wanting to do medicine do have that little sense of pride. I remember asking for help with chemistry like a few weeks ago, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've just emailed my teacher for help. I'm gonna have to face her tomorrow. Like, this is so embarrassing. But it's not. Like, that's how you improve, and you're not gonna get better without the help. So it's really important.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And well, with that, kind of you two are always seem so happy and positive on social media, and kind of funny, and always like with each other and being really positive. So what are your top 3 tips on how to stay positive at med school?
I think the first thing first is to acknowledge you're not always going to be positive and happy. You're not always going to have good days, and that's why I think there is our fair share of videos where we're maybe ranting about a really bad day we had at placement, or we're admitting we're burnt out, or like recently I shared the fact that I had to resit and take one of the exams that I failed last year. Like, I think it's so important to show both sides of the spectrum, and I think it's very interesting because we often like people look at medic influencers like people who should show 50% the bad side, 50% the good side. But I think in the world we live in, where there's already so much negativity, why do you want to see so much more negativity online? And I think that's why we try our best to keep things good vibes. You will see 80% good vibes, positivity and stuff, but there is that 20% we share where it's like things aren't always easy. Be realistic. Don't be naive. If you do find yourself in a situation, this is how to get yourself out, how to get help. So I think it is important to have kind of that unfair balance. I definitely don't think it should ever be 50-50 because there's already so much negativity in the world. So my top 3, number 1, like I mentioned, be realistic. You're not always going to have good days, and I think when you know that, you'll put less pressure on yourself to always be positive. I don't even think that's healthy to look at everything like, that's fine, I'm burnt out, but let's look at this positively. Like, no, like, it's okay if you're sad sometimes, it's okay if you're stressed sometimes, like, it's fine. But I think just understand that medicine is a roller coaster. You will have up days, you will have down days. It is what it is. It's fine. The main thing is you need to have that support network that will help you climb out of the bad days. And when you do have the good days, it's really important just to enjoy it. Because I think, I don't know about others, but I don't know, maybe medics are like natural warriors. But when things are going too well with medicine, it's always like, when nothing's gonna go wrong. Like, why am I not stressed? Why am I not overwhelmed? What's going on? But just enjoy the positivity and enjoy the good days. And my second tip would be, I'll let Hazal do the third tip, but my second tip would be, like I mentioned before, be proactive and intentional about being happy. Like, it is a choice. Medicine is not easy, but at the end of the day, if you make I hate medicine, or I'm so sad in medicine, or medicine is so difficult, look at me, your personality, you are not going to enjoy this 5-year degree, genuinely. So if you're making an intentional decision to insert pockets of happiness in your daily life or in your monthly life, or whatever it is, you will find that you have a better quality of life. Like, right now, January just started, we have so much to do, but like, I'm looking forward to a YouTube event I have next week, and I get to see my friends. Perhaps in February, beginning of February, there might be lots to do again, but I'm looking forward to my birthday. Exam season, Lord have mercy on 4th year exam season, but I know that after exam season, I'm going to travel and see my family abroad because one of them is getting married. So it's just pockets of happiness you're deliberately inserting to have something to look forward to when things get hard. So those will be my 2 top tips, and I'll let Hazal do the third one.
I'm just going to add something to the second tip, and then I'll give a third tip as well. Just essentially, medicine is what you make it, and medical school is what you make it. That's something we always say, and I think it definitely is very, very true, because you can choose to be bogged down by your studies all the time and not have extracurricular activities or a social life outside of your studies, which means you're burnt out and you're not happy. But you can also make the active decision to join societies that you want to join, make friendships that you want to make, go out and do stuff that you want to do, because we're actually adults now. Like, we can take control of our life and of our studies and of our extracurriculars. It doesn't have to be study. It can be a mixture of study when I have to, have fun when I have to. And genuinely, because medicine is a 5, 6, even 7-year degree for some people, it's really important that you strike a good balance, because if you don't, you're not going to enjoy your degree, and you don't want to work so hard to get into a degree and then not enjoy it because you didn't let yourself enjoy it. So definitely work hard to strike that balance. I know it's difficult to say because you come from A levels where you had to work so incredibly hard to get into medical school, but now that you've got in, give yourself that reward, that treat to kind of let loose a bit and still keep on top of your studies, of course, but enjoy life as well, because you don't want to not enjoy 18 to 23 and then get into your career and then not enjoy it as well because you haven't been able to strike that balance. So yeah, that's something I'll add on to that point. My third point of how to stay positive with medicine is just understand that medicine comes with a lot of adapting. There's always something new that you have to adapt to. In your first 2-3 years of medical school, where it's more clinical years, preclinical years, where it's more lecture-based, you need to adapt your learning style from your A-level learning style to your new university learning style, because there's so much content, so you have to figure out a new way to learn all that content. And then when you get into your clinical years, you need to adapt to being on placement from 9 to 5 on your feet, and then still finding the courage to go home and do some more work, or slotting in work into your lunch breaks and stuff like that. So you always need to be able to adapt your learning method and how you do things to best suit you. I think that's something I really struggled with when I first started medicine, because I had a study method that really worked in A levels. So why wouldn't I use that at medicine? But for me, it didn't work because I can't sit down and make notes on everything because there's just too much content. So I had to adapt and change my revision method. I had the same issue in my clinical years when I was spending so much time on placement, but I felt like I wasn't learning anything. And that's because I hadn't adapted my learning method. And once I did, and I learned that I had to do a lot more clinical question practice, it helps me a lot. So be open to the idea of change and adaptability. And I think your time at medical school will be a lot easier.
Wow, that's such amazing advice. Thank you so much. It's actually quite a different side of it that I would normally think about, like actually put in pockets of like positive moments, actually plan that in. That's something I wouldn't really think of, because you think, oh, I'll just always be positive, but you're saying no, actually, like, it's okay, you're not always going to be positive. You need to plan in moments where you are going to be, and that's really important. And thank you for that, because I wouldn't really think about it like that normally. And so be realistic, don't and also the thing about negativity online, I thought that was really interesting actually. Like, you don't want to see negative things online, so that's a good point. Be realistic. Also have a support network. I feel like it could be quite easy to become isolated very quickly, so make sure you have that nice friend group or support network. Choose to be happy, as you said, like have those little nice moments and then be able to adapt. I really love all of those. So thank you so much for being here on the podcast today. It's been great to have you.
Thank you, honestly. And I think big you up as well, like doing, like, you know, as I said, doing a podcast in year 12, like this is a lot. Like I would not have been able to do it. And I think the way you speak as well, you seem very knowledgeable, you have a lot of insight, you seem to be really on it with gathering experience for medicine. So I do wish you the best of luck with your medical application process. I do think you're going to have a very competitive application, so you should really be happy with yourself and with everything you're doing to kind of prepare yourself for medicine. You'll be an amazing medical student.
Thank you for asking us questions that we haven't been asked before as well.
Very
like I was thinking there. So yeah, really enjoyed this chat. Thank you so much for having us. And of course, if you ever need anything with your application process, you can just message us. And anyone listening as well, we try to reply to like all our DMs to help you guys as well. So if you have any advice, if you need any advice, just message us and we'll try to get through to you guys.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. It's been absolutely great to have you. And that's all today from the Medisynergy podcast. Thank you for listening, and join us next week, and make sure to recommend this episode to any aspiring medics.